So, very good morning to all of you. I'm going to continue this lecture, that is spatial senses. In my previous lecture, I already discussed about the ear, eye, and their disorders. Now I am going to discuss spatial senses, especially nose, tongue, and their disorder. In my last lecture, I already discussed about the basic anatomy and physiology of nose and their different structures. I am just repeating the nose so that it will be easily understood for all of you. As we already discussed about the basic structure and anatomy of nose, where you can see nose is not only composed with some connective or adipose tissue. There is a combination of bones, cartilage, and some muscle fibers also. You can see there is a bony framework, cartilaginous framework, and some connective and adipose tissue. So this is the composition of nose, where we already discussed about the functions and different parts of nose. That nose can be divided into different type of categories, like in especially it is start from the external part means the surface anatomy of the nose. जैसा हमें हमारा nose दिख रहा है in front of you, in that position, these are the external parts of your nose. Like there is a frontal bone. Hope you are seeing my cursor of mouse. Frontal bone, nasal bone, cartilages, maxillary bone. These are the parts of external nose. These were the functions. Then we discuss about the olfactory apparatus. This is very important apparatus responsible for olfaction. Olfaction means smell. There are specific chemoreceptors. With the help of these chemoreceptors, we are capable to olfact the particular smell and then store into our central system. This was the parasagittal section, where we studied that there is a periorbital fat, ethmoidal cell, and there is a very important structure that divided this nose into two septal parts or two chambers, that is vomer. These all structures we studied in the last slide. Now, before discussing the tongue, I am going to discuss about the disorder of the nose. So there are some specific dysfunctions that are related with the nose. The first and primary dysfunction is called sinusitis. What is sinusitis? Sinusitis is one of the most common chronic condition. It includes the symptoms of nasal obstruction. Now it is clear, it's a very common term. If your nose is blocked, then what will happen? We are not able to properly breathe. There will be a nasal drainage, decreased sense of smell, facial pressure, and frequent sinus infection. Before discussing the sinusitis, we need to understand, let me explain in a very simple way. Here are different sinuses. These are these are muscular tissues. You can see these are muscles, specific tissues which are present and attached surround the nose. If they become thickened, now what happened in sinusitis? You can see the thickened sinus lining. The lining is thickened and the mass fiber is reduced. Then what will happen? It causes obstruction of your nose, so that the person cannot able to breathe properly and their sense of smell will be reduced. There are some other infections and Complications associated with this, like allergies and related respiratory problems like asthma, which can also associated with the chronic sinusitis. In this diagram, you can see there are different type of sinuses like sphenoid sinus, the central portion sphenoid sinus, frontal sinus, you can see here frontal sinus, ethmoid sinus, and maxillary sinus. So what are these sinuses? Sinuses means the particular muscular fiber tissues which are present around the nose. They are attached with the nose. The next is nasal and sinus polyps. What is this? Polyps. Polyps are associated with sinusitis and occur when the lining of the sinuses swell. You can see in this diagram, these are the polyps, the overgrowth of the roof. Polyps may block the nasal airway and natural drainage of the sinus cavities, leading to infections. They occur as a result of an ongoing inflammatory process within the nose and sinuses. See, nasal polyps is nothing but these are the overgrowth of these nasal polyps inside the nose. Next is nasal stuffiness. What is nasal stuffiness? This is a common term. Nasal stuffiness means the narrowing of nasal pathway. The nasal canal become the diameter of that particular channel is reduced. Nasal congestion occurs when nasal and adjacent tissues and blood vessel become swollen with excess fluid, causing a stuffy. Stuffy means plugged. आपको ऐसे लगेगा जैसे आपका नाक जाम हो गया, which it may or may not include a nasal discharge or running nose. It arises most commonly as a result of a common cold and allergic reactions. The next is allergic rhinitis. Allergic rhinitis, what is the another name of allergic rhinitis is hay fever. It is a type of inflammation in which when the immune system overreacts to environmental allergens like such as pollen, pet hair, dust or mold. Suppose there are some dust particles, there are some pollen or there are some mold. If they enter into your nasal cavity, then what happened? There is a those allergens will act as an antigen, and for that antigen there is a release of some particular antibodies. Then there is a antigen antibody reaction and causes rhinitis. Sign and symptoms that are associated with allergic rhinitis like runny or stuffy nose, sneezing, red, itchy and watery eyes, and swelling around the eyes. You can see in this diagram that due to allergic rhinitis, the redness and there is a excess swelling of the eyes. Asthma. Asthma is also a condition due to airway narrow and swell and can cause extra mucus. This can make breathing difficult, that is called as dyspnea. There are two terms like apnea and dyspnea. Apnea and dyspnea, both terms are associated with the breathing. Apnea means absence of breathing, dyspnea means difficulty in breathing, and they trigger coughing and a wheezing sound like when the patient breathe out and shortness of breath. You can see this is a normal lung where there is a proper normal lining and normal amount of mucus. But in case of asthma, you can see the lining becomes swollen and there is excessive secretion of mucus which causes the narrowing of the airway passage and the patient feel difficulty in breathing. Next condition is rhinocerebral mucormycosis. This is also called as zygomycosis. It is a rare opportunistic infection of the paranasal sinuses, nasal passages, oral cavity, and brain caused by a particular fungi species like saprophytic fungi. This is the name of that fungi, and it is commonly affected individual with diabetes and those in immunocompromised states. Because we know diabetic patients are not much up to the mark and not much capable to produce some antibodies against some particular infections due to their weak immunity. And the symptoms that are associated with rhinocerebral mucormycosis is nasal or sinus congestion, black lesions on nasal bridge. You can see this is a real picture of this infection, or upper inside of mouth that quickly become more severe. Now, before starting the disorder of tongue, I am going to discuss the tongue. So, this is our tongue that is responsible for the taste, sensation of taste. So, till now we already discussed about the sense organs like ear, eye, nose. Now this is last topic of unit 4, that is tongue. So in this diagram you can see there are different parts present on tongue responsible for individual taste, like the edges and the outer portion is responsible for sweet. Below this portion, that the portion is responsible for salt taste. Before this, sour. And behind this there is a there the area responsible for bitter taste. So there are different parts present on tongue responsible for individual taste taste sense. So now I am going to share some basic about the tongue. The tongue is an accessory digestive organ. We know without tongue there is no taste and we are not capable to identify that particular taste. Composed of skeletal muscle covered with mucous membrane. Skeletal muscle means the muscle that is voluntary muscle and we can control the movement of that muscle. It is covered with mucous membrane and together with its associated muscle, it forms the floor of the oral cavity. We know this is the mouth, this area is our oral cavity, and in oral cavity the floor is our tongue. The tongue is divided into symmetrical lateral halves by a median septum that extends the entire length of tongue. It is attached inferiorly to the hyoid bone, styloid process of the temporal bone, and the mandible. Each half of the tongue consists of an identical complement of extrinsic and intrinsic muscle. There are different type of muscles present in the tongue also. So what you mean by extrinsic muscle of the tongue? It is basically originate outside the tongue, insert into connective tissue in tongue, which include hyoglossus, genioglossus, and styloglossus muscle. So these are the muscles and the different organizations where extrinsic and intrinsic muscle of tongue that assist in mastification and speech. Without tongue, we are not able to deliver a speech or we deliver to talk with anyone. So here you can see this is your tongue, and your tongue is associated just posteriorly with palatoglossus, the muscle. These all are muscles. Stylohypoid, styloglossus, hyoglossus. These are different orientation of muscle. Orientation means the different directions. With the help of different directions, it is attached with the tongue because we can move our tongue as per our own convenience. This is your mandible. Below the mandible, there is a separate structure called genioglossus. Below that, that is genuhyoid and hyoid bone. So these are different structures present around the tongue. Now I am going to discuss about the extrinsic muscle that are attached and associate with the tongue. The extrinsic muscle move the tongue from side to side and in and out to for following functions like move food for chewing, shape the food into a rounded mass, and force the food to back of the mouth for swallowing. These are three important functions of tongue. They also form the floor of the mouth and hold the tongue in position. The intrinsic muscles originate in and insert into connective tissue within the tongue, because we know there are also availability of intrinsic muscle that are connected with some connective tissue for the speech and swallowing, because with the help of this intrinsic muscle they can alter the shape and size of the tongue. So what are those intrinsic muscles? Those intrinsic muscles are longitudinalis superior, longitudinalis inferior, transversus linguae, and verticalis linguae muscles. These are four intrinsic muscles which are responsible for attachment with extrinsic muscles and also proceeding the speech and swallowing process. So what is lingual frenulum? Lingual frenulum is also the lingua of the tongue, a fold of mucous membrane in the midline of the under surface of the tongue. अगर आप अपनी टंग उठाएंगे तो देखेंगे कि वो बीच में एक स्पेसिफिक वहां पर एक फोल्ड है जो उसको टंग को नीचे से सेपरेट कर रहा है दो पार्ट में, दो चैम्बर बन जाते हैं नीचे जब हम हमारी जीभ को ऊपर उठाते हैं. सो दैट लाइनिंग, that fold of mucous membrane is our lingua of the tongue that is present under surface of the tongue. It is attached to the floor of the mouth and aids in limiting the movement of tongue posteriorly. Here is the diagram. So this is the structure of oral cavity that is very important as per the syllabus point of view, and as a reader you must know about this oral cavity. So there are two views, one is side view and one is front view. First I am going to discuss about the front view. You can see in oral cavity this is your upper lip. Next this is your gingivae, that is also called gums, and in between gums and lips there is a frenulum. Now this is your superior labial frenulum. This is your, hope you are seeing the cursor of mouse. This is inferior labial frenulum. Frenulum means it is also as a septum. There is a joint, fold. There is a joint, or this is like fold. Below the tongue, there is a frenulum called lingual frenulum. So these all are frenulums present in the tongue. The upper, in oral cavity, the roof of this cavity is your palatine raphe, and laterally there is hard plate. Below the hard plate there is a soft palate. The structure that is originated from this palatine raphe and hard plate is your uvula. Next is palatine tonsils. These are your palatine tonsils. This is your sublingual fold with opening of sublingual ducts that are responsible to releasing some specific enzymes. This on the right side you can see this is palatoglossal arc. This is your palatoglossal arc. This is palatopharyngeal arc behind the palatoglossal arc. This is your tongue. That is nothing but the mass of skeletal muscle surrounding by mucous membrane. This is the opening of submandibular duct, and again these are the gums. So this is the anterior view of oral cavity. If you want to see the side view, this is also the side view, that is known as sagittal section of oral cavity and pharynx. Here you can see this is the opening of your mouth. This is your tongue. See, this is a very in your mouth. This is a very dense and this is a very dense and very wide structure in your mouth. That is your tongue. Below the tongue, you can see just posterior there is oropharynx. Below the oropharynx, there is this. These are called lingual tonsils. This is your epiglottis. That is the lid of your respiratory tract. This is your hyoid bone. This is your laryngopharynx, esophagus, and trachea. So these are different parts of your this one oral cavity. In your mouth, related to your tongue, there are some salivary glands which are present in your mouth. Three major salivary glands are there. One is yours. One is your first. I want to discuss this the basic structure of this gland, like parotid gland. Next is the Stinson gland. The next is Wharton, also known as submandibular duct. So, what is the function of salivary gland? Salivary glands are responsible to liquefy your food and to digest the polysaccharides. What you mean by polysaccharide? I am giving an example like starch. Starch is digested primarily starch is digested by your this one amylase enzyme released by salivary glands, which degrade and break down this starch into monosaccharides and disaccharides. So this is the general information about the tongue, where we discuss now if a person lingual frenulum is abnormally short or rigid. It presents a medical condition called ankyloglossia. What do you mean by ankyloglossia? The person is sensed to be tongue tied because of the resulting in impairment of speech. The person is not able to speak properly. The next is the dorsum. What is dorsum? Upper surface. And lateral surfaces of the tongue are covered with papillae. Papillae is the projection of the lamina propria covered with stratified squamous epithelium layers. This is also very important. Many papillae contain taste buds. What do you mean by taste bud? The receptors for gustation. Gustation means taste. You have some taste bud on your this one tongue. Some papillae lack taste buds, but they contain receptors for touch and increase friction between the tongue and food, making it easier for the tongue to move food in the oral cavity. So this is the basic function of papillae. Lingual glands in the lamina propria of the tongue basically secrete both mucus and a watery serous fluid that contains the enzyme lingual lipase, which act on triglyceride. The next and important is sense of taste. What is the mechanism behind taste? What do you mean by sense of taste? How you feel taste? So for that purpose, there are taste buds present on tongue which contains sensory receptors, also known as chemoreceptors, that are found in the papillae and widely distributed in the epithelia of the tongue, soft palate, pharynx, and epiglottis. So these are the basic functions of chemoreceptor. They consist of small sensory nerve endings of the glossopharyngeal, facial, and vagus nerve. I will discuss about the cranial nerves after this lecture, because in my previous lecture, due to shortage of time, that portion we just go through. So we will discuss now in detail about cranial nerves. Some of the cells have hair-like microvilli on their free border, projecting towards tiny pores in the epithelium. The sensory receptors are stimulated by chemicals that enter the pores dissolved in saliva. Nerve impulses are generated and conducted along the glossopharyngeal, facial, and vagus nerve before synapsing in the medulla and thalamus. The nerve impulses are also there to collect and to send the information. Their final destination is the taste area in the parietal lobe of the cerebral cortex where taste is received. Your taste, the sensation of taste is also stored in your brain. So these are your taste buds. Different type of taste buds are there. These are taste buds. These are serous glands. You can see the taste cells, supporting cells, nerve fibers which are supplying to them, and these are taste air. So all type of taste buds having some projections above the projections just above the your tongue. So that was about your uh, tongue. Now I am going to discuss the disorder of tongue. The first disorder of tongue is partial ankyloglossia. This is the real image of a patient of a children having partial ankyloglossia, that is also known as tongue tie. Your tongue is not free to move right and left or up and down. It is a congenital oral anomaly. What you mean by congenital? Congenital means birth defect. कि बच्चा जन्म से ही उस डिसफंक्शन के साथ पैदा हुआ है. उस कंजेनिटल इज अ कॉमन टर्म. कंजेनिटल मीन्स बर्थ डिफेक्ट. जन्म से ही उसको ये दिक्कत है. इट इज करेक्टराइज्ड बाय एन abnormally short lingual frenulum which restricts tongue mobility. आप अपनी टंग को दाएं बाएं नहीं कर सकते. In that case, only surgery is option. Next is tongue thrusting. Tongue thrusting is the length of tongue is become very long so that the children can bite their own tongue. It is also known as orofacial myofunctional disorder, where the tongue presses forward too far in the mouth. You can see this is the real image where the tongue is coming outside from your basic length and resulting as abnormal orthodontic condition like open bite. See, the length of tongue is abnormal, so the person can repetitively bite their own tongue. This is most commonly in children. So what are the causes like poor swallowing habits and allergies are the causes of tongue thrusting. These are fissured tongue. This is the real image of fissured tongue. It is a benign condition affecting the top surface of the tongue. There are shrinkages and severe depth lining in the tongue. It is marked. What is fissured tongue? It is marked by a deep, prominent groove in the middle. You can see deep, prominent groove in the middle and small furrows or fissures across the surface. You can see the small fissures or the small cuts linings on the tongue, the causing the tongue to have wrinkled appearance. Wrinkled. Next is median rhomboid glossitis. On tongue at the particular site, there is a formation of some finger-like projection, nodula. It is the term used to describe a smooth, red, flat or raised nodular area on the top part of the middle or back of the tongue. You can see this is a nodular area present on the tongue. The affected area of tongue is missing its normal coating of finger-like projections like filiform papilla. which normally cover the entire surface of the tongue. This is aglossia congenita. Aglossia means absence of tongue. बच्चे के मुंह में टंग ही नहीं है, absence of tongue. This is also a congenital problem. It is also a birth defect resulting in partial development or complete absence of a tongue. Aglossia means absence of tongue. It is commonly associated with craniofacial and limb defect, which is called as Adaktila syndrome. It belongs to a family of oromandibular limb hypogenesis syndrome, or sometimes called as OLHS. Next is hypoglossia. Glossia means tongue. Hypo means there is a reduction of tongue, or you can say the incomplete development of tongue. Hypoglossia is a short, incompletely developed tongue. You can see it is also present in children, congenital. It can either as an isolated malformation or in association with other deformities, particularly limb defects. It also belongs to a family of oromandibular limb hypogenesis syndrome of OLHS. Next is macroglossia. This was hypoglossia when there is incomplete or short length of tongue. This is macro. Macro means increase in size, abnormal enlargement of the tongue. This is also a rare cases, macroglossia, which is occur as an isolated finding that is present at birth, also a congenital dysfunction. Next is lingual hamartomas. When there is a term oma, it means tumor-like malformation when there is a overgrowth of some specific tissue on a particular site or organ. It is rare, benign, tumor-like malformation of the tongue composed of tissue indigenous to the area in which it is found, but abnormally arranged. These malformations may occur as isolated lesions or in association with syndromes such as oral facial digital syndrome, OFDS. You can see this is a lingual hamartomas. Next is sublingual dermoid cysts. This is also a condition, the disease disorder of the related to tongue or oral cavity. What is this? This is also congenital, benign lesions present as swelling of various sizes. The tongue is yellowish color lying in the connective tissue beneath the lingual frenulum and just posterior to the mandible. Cyst in the floor of the mouth above the geniohyoid may be large enough to elevate the tongue and cause difficulty in mastication and speech. The next disorder of tongue is depalpitation or atrophic glossitis. Atrophic glossitis is a condition characterized by absence of filiform or fungiform papillae on the dorsal surface of the tongue. Consequently, the ordinary texture and appearance of the dorsal tongue, determined by papillary protrusion, turns into a soft and smooth aspect. You can see there is an absence of filiform or fungiform papillary on tongue, also known as depapillation. So I am just again briefing the different type of disorders of nose. The first disorder of nose is sinusitis. You can see there is a problem in sinus. Nasal and sinus polyps, nasal stuffiness. You can see the narrowing of the this one. Allergic rhinitis, the nasal cavity, there is a discharge of this fluid. Asthma, rhinocerebral mucormycosis, fungal infection. Next is disorder of tongues, where we discuss about the partial ankyloglossia, tongue thrusting, fisher tongue, median rhomboid glossitis, aglossia congenita, hypoglossia, macroglossia, lingual hematomas, sublingual dermoid cyst, atrophic glossitis. Now I am going to discuss the cranial nerves in detail so that you will be understand the basic anatomy and physiology behind these cranial nerves. In my morning lecture, we discuss about the peripheral nervous system. We discuss about the structure of PNS, the functional organization of the PNS, where different type of sensory and motor neurons are there. Then we discuss the reflex arc, somatic nervous system, autonomic nervous system. So these are our cranial nerves. So what are cranial nerves? Cranial nerves are pairs of nerves that connect the brain to different parts of head, neck, and trunk. There are 12 of them, each named for their function or structure. After this cranial nerve, we will discuss the spinal nerves so that it will be easy for all of you. Each nerve also has a corresponding Roman numerical number between 1 and 12. This is based off their location from front to back. The functions of cranial nerves are usually categorized as being either sensory or motor. Now we know what are sensory neurons and what are motor neurons. These sensory nerves are involved with senses such as smell, hearing, and touch. The motor neurons are mainly control the movement and function of muscles or glands. So these are different type of cranial nerves from 1 to 12. The first is olfactory. You can see the location in brain. The second is optic. There is a proper organization of cranial nerves in the central nervous system. They are not dispersed in unorganized manner. They are properly organized, sequentially organized, and arranged in a manner that one after one there is second, after second there is third. So you can see one pair. Cranial nerves are present in pair because we have two hemispheres. So for both hemispheres there are individual cranial nerves. So first is olfactory. Second is this is your optic. Below the optic there is a cranial nerve that is your oculomotor. Then below the oculomotor this purple color is your trochlear nerve. And then there is a trigeminal. These are trigeminal. Why we called it trigeminal? Because it is further divided into three branches. Then there is a sixth, that is your abducent. This is your abducens. The seventh is your intermediate. Eighth is your vestibulocochlear. This is your vestibulocochlear nerve. Ninth is your glossopharyngeal nerve. This is your glossopharyngeal. Tenth is, this is the largest, vagus. 11th is accessory, and the 12th is hypoglossal. So these are different type of nerves, cranial nerves present in the brain, responsible for sensory and motor functions. Now we will discuss one by one the cranial nerves. The first cranial nerve is your olfactory nerve. Olfaction means the function related to smell. It consists of a collection of many sensory nerve fibers that extend from the olfactory epithelium to the olfactory bulb. What is olfactory epithelium? The roof of nose. And what is olfactory bulb? The neurons that is collectively coming down to the olfactory olfactory epithelium. It is the shortest of the 12 cranial nerve. It is the shortest cranial nerve from among the all 12 cranial nerve. Only one of two cranial nerves that do not join within the brainstem. It doesn't join with any other cranial nerve. Continue to emerge throughout life and extend new axons to the olfactory bulb. So you can see this is your olfactory bulb, and this neuron that are known as cranial nerve or olfactory nerve. Next is cranial nerve 2. It is also known as optic nerve, the nerve that is responsible for sensation. Which sensation? The sensation of vision. ये vision के लिए responsible है. It is also part of central nervous system. This sensory nerve involves vision. It is located in the back of the eye. You can see the optic nerve is coming and taking the inputs from the eye and supply the information and interconnection between brain and eye. It transfers visual information from the retina to the vision center of brain via electrical impulses. Next is oculomotor nerve. This is your third cranial nerve and it is very important nerve. Why it is very important? Because this nerve is the third paired cranial nerve, originate in the front part of midbrain. Oculomotor nerve is not the part of your central nervous system, that is cerebrum. It is the part of midbrain. You can see it is originated from the midbrain, the third. Here, from here it is going through. It has two different functions. Oculomotor, the one is muscle function and the second is pupil response. For the movement of eye and the focusing on object, we required some neuronal information, and that information is provided by oculomotor third cranial nerve. And for pupil response, it also helps to control the size of pupil as it responds to light. जैसे ही आप रोशनी में गए आपके pupil का size बहुत छोटा हो जाएगा, and that function is performed by oculomotor nerve. Why वो pupil का size क्यों छोटा हो जाएगा? To prevent it direct damage from that light source. The fourth cranial nerve is your trochlear nerve. So what is trochlear nerve? It controls superior oblique muscle of eye. Now you will be shocked that more than four cranial nerves are supplying only to your eye. Now what is the importance of eye? Because it is responsible for downward, outward and inward eye movement. This is the basic function of trochlear nerve. You can see where it is supplying. Trochlear nerve is supplying to superior oblique muscle. It emerges from the back part of midbrain. It is also originated from the midbrain. So from midbrain we are getting two cranial nerves. One is oculomotor and the second one is trochlear. Both cranial nerves are going to your eye. It moves forward until it reaches eye socket where it stimulates the superior oblique muscle. The next one is your trigeminal nerve. Trigeminal nerve, why we called it trigeminal nerve? If you are seeing the cursor, that this is the main branch of trigeminal nerve. This is the largest cranial nerve. Then again further divided into three subparts, three branches. One is known as V1, second is V2, third is V3. They are going in different directions and performing different functions. The V1 trigeminal nerve is a branch for ophthalmic region. The V2 is for maxillary. Maxillary means it is just associated with your the maxilla portion of your mouth. What is maxilla portion? That is, you can see here the portion that is associated with your nose, tongue, and the oral cavity. That reason. And the another third is your mandibular branch. The mandibular branch is going into your tongue, your tongue, and below your this maxilla. So what are the functions of trigeminal nerve? This is the largest cranial nerve. Provide tactile motion, position, and pain sensation for the face and mouth. Its motor function activates the muscles of the jaw, mouth, and inner ear. The sensory root of trigeminal nerve branches into ophthalmic, maxillary, and mandibular divisions. So these are different type of functions related to trigeminal nerve. Next is your sixth cranial nerve, abducens nerve. This sixth cranial nerve arises the nucleus, or you can say the cranial nuclei is present in the bones of brainstem. You can see how from where it is originating, the sixth cranial nerve. It is originating and it itself enter into your eye. It carry general somatic efferent nerve axons to innervate the lateral rectus muscle, which then abducts the eye on the ipsilateral side. Ipsilateral side means from right and left. This is your lateral rectus muscle. You can see side में है जो eyes के. So this is my eye, the muscle that is present laterally. Next cranial nerve is your seventh cranial nerve. This is your facial nerve. The facial nerve provides both sensory and motor functions. It includes moving muscles used for facial expression as well as some muscles in jaw. This is your seventh cranial nerve, which providing a sense of taste for most of the tongue. This is also supply in the glands in head or neck area such as salivary glands and tear producing glands, and it is communicating sensation from the outer parts of ear. The eighth cranial nerve is your vestibulocochlear nerve. You can see that is also originating from the pons, eighth cranial nerve, and it supplies to the vestibulocochlear part, that is also a inner part. Any information that is coming from your ear with the help of vestibulocochlear cranial nerve, that is your eighth cranial nerve. It comprises the cochlear nerve that transmits hearing information and the vestibular nerve that transmits balance information. The cochlear nerve travels away from the cochlea of the inner ear where it starts as the spiral ganglia. It travels from the vestibular system of the inner ear also. You can see this is the outer ear, middle ear, inner ear, and in inner ear, if you are seeing these yellow structures are your vestibulocochlear nerve which supply to the inner and middle ear and collecting the information. The ninth is glossopharyngeal nerve. It is responsible for swallowing and the gag reflex along with other functions. Glossopharyngeal nerves, you can see it is supplying to your mouth region and responsible for your swallowing and gag reflexes. It receives inputs from the general and spatial sensory fibers in the back of the throat. It has five components. One is branchial motor, visceral motor, visceral sensory, general sensory, and spatial sensory components. Glossopharyngeal nerve is also having different branches for different functions. You can see these branches are also associated with posterior auricular nerve, lesser occipital nerve, greater auricular nerve, spatial accessory nerve, styloid process, zygomatic facial, and buccal facial. These are the associations which are interconnected with this glossopharyngeal nerve. The tenth and the most important nerve of all cranial nerve, that is your vagus nerve. Charger is It has the longest pathway, vagus nerve. Longest pathway. It extend from head all the way into abdomen. ये आपके head से लेके abdomen तक आ रही है. You can see here at the right side. It originates from medulla and responsible for some particular functions like it is communicating sensation information from ear canal, parts of throat, heart, and intestine. It also stimulates the peristalsis movement. It also providing a sense of taste near the root of tongue. You can see the different functions related to vagus nerve, that it is constricting the pupil, it is stimulating the flow of saliva, it constricts bronchi, it slow the heartbeats. If vagus nerve is stimulated, then your heartbeat will be slowed down. It stimulates peristalsis and secretion. It stimulates bile release and it contracts the bladder. So, what are the functions of vagus nerve? It is the question which can be asked in Viva, that it has stimulatory function of pupil, saliva, bronchi, GIT, bile, and bladder. Only a single organ, that is your heart, where it slow down the heartbeat. The 11th nerve is your accessory nerve, that is responsible for tilting and rotating the head, elevating the shoulder, and adducting the scapula. Don't be confused that cranial nerves are controlling your whole body part. This is not possible. Cranial nerves are the nerves which supplies to your head, neck, and just shoulder upper region. Other than this, all system or the information is controlled by peripheral nervous system. Cranial nerves and the spinal nerves are the part of peripheral nervous system. Accessory nerves are the nerves that enter and exit the skull. So these are the nerves which are mainly present in the skull portion. You can see these are accessory nerves which are which are coming from the your brainstem and enter into your head, and they also goes down to your ट्रेफिजॉइड मसल. आपकी जो नेक की जो मसल्स हैं वहां पे भी इनकी सप्लाईज आ रही है. It divided into two parts. One is spinal accessory nerve and one is cranial accessory nerve. Spinal accessory nerve means which are supplying to the spinal part. Cranial accessory nerve which are not entering into your spinal region, they are just enter into your other head region only. The spinal portion originate in the upper part of spinal cord and the cranial part starts in the medulla oblongata. Your last cranial nerve is your hypoglossal nerve. That is your cranial nerve 12. It controls tongue movement of speech, food manipulation and swallowing. It controls the tongue involuntary activity for swallowing to clear the mouth of saliva, because the movement of tongue is not only associated with the muscles, it is controlled by hypoglossal nerve. If there is a term glossal, please link that term to your tongue part. It starts in the medulla oblongata and moves down into the jaw where it reaches the tongue. So these are the basic information about the cranial nerves. Now I am going to discuss about the spinal nerves, that is very important for syllabus point of view and viva point of view. So there are 31 pairs of spinal nerves that leave the vertebral canal by passing through the intervertebral foramina formed by adjacent vertebrae. They are named and grouped according to the vertebrae with which they are associated, like 8 cervical, 12 thoracic, 5 lumbar, 5 sacral, and 1 coccygeal. So there are total 31 pair of spinal nerves. The lumbar, sacral and coccygeal nerves leave the spinal cord near its termination at the level of first lumbar vertebra and extend downwards inside the vertebral canal in the subarachnoid space, forming a sheaf of nerves which resemble a horsetail, the cauda equina. The spinal nerves arise from both sides of spinal cords because we have right side and left side. So to supply to the both side, we required pair of spinal nerves. Each nerve is formed by the union of a motor and a sensory nerve root, is therefore called a mixed nerve. These are different type of spinal nerves. We will start from the starting to end of the spinal nerves. Spinal nerves are the nerves which are, you can see they are originating from the right side as well as from the left side, and you can see the C1 spinal nerve. C1 means cervical 1, that is coming from here. L1 lumbar vertebra. So between C1 and L1 there are different type of nerves known as cervical plexus. Plexus means the network of neurons. Next is brachial plexus and intercostal plexus or intercostal nerves, which are originating and coming from your ribs region. Next is your lumbar plexus, the neurons or the nerves which are coming from the lumbar region. Femoral nerve, this is your femoral nerve that is going to your thigh region and collecting the information from there. Sacral nerve, they are going down to your lower limb part, that is your legs. On the right side, if you are seeing that there is a spinal cord and also associated with phrenic nerve, the thoracic vertebrae. On in hand portion, there are nerves known as axillary nerve, and in below the axillary nerve, there are associations like musculocutaneous nerve, median nerve. You can see median nerve. Why we call it median nerve? Because it is present inside the system of your muscle system. The radial nerve. This is your radial nerve, radius and ulna. This is your ulnar nerve on the basis of their organization in the hand. These are subcostal nerves. Subcostal means the which are present near to the ribs. Another is iliohypogastric and ilioinguinal nerves. There are lateral cutaneous nerve of the thigh, pudendal nerve, and sciatic nerves. So these are basic spinal nerves present in our peripheral nervous system. Now, what is nerve root? This is a common term we used in nervous system. The anterior nerve root consists of motor nerve fibers, which are the axons of nerve cells in the anterior column of gray matter in the spinal cord. The posterior nerve root consists of sensory nerve fibers. Just outside the spinal cord, there is a spinal ganglia, and that spinal ganglia is known as posterior root ganglia. It is consisting of a little cluster of cell bodies. Sensory nerve fibers passes through these ganglia before entering the spinal cord. So this is the basic information about the nerve root. So in this diagram, you can easily understand this is your section of spinal cord where you can see there is a gray matter and laterally there is a white matter. This is your dorsal root. Why we called it dorsal root? Because it is coming from the dorsal horn, the uppermost portion. This is your ventral root, the lowermost portion, from where these spinal nerves, the blue color nerves are, these are spinal nerves, and the red color nerves, here you can see these are forming the ventral root. So there are different type of ramus. Ramus means the bypass of these nerves, that is white ramus, gray ramus, ventral ramus, dorsal ramus. These are different roots of these spinal nerves. Now next is branches. What are branches? Branches are the immediately after emerging from the intervertebral foramen, the each spinal nerve divides into a ramus communicans. It is a posterior ramus and an anterior ramus. The posterior rami pass backward and divide into medial and lateral branches to supply skin and muscle of relatively small area of the posterior aspect of the head, neck and trunk. The anterior rami supply the anterior and lateral aspect of the neck, trunk and the upper and lower limb. Plexus. This is very important. What do you mean by plexus? Plexus means the network of neurons. In the cervical, lumbar, and sacral regions, the anterior rami means branches, the bundle of neurons, unite to form large masses of nerves or plexus, where nerve fibers are regrouped, rearranged before proceeding to supply skin, bones, muscles, and joints of a particular area. I am again repeating, this is very important from examination point of view for your knowledge as well as to understand the basic physiology in nervous system, the plexus system. In the cervical, this region. Below the cervical, suppose this is your cervical. Below the cervical, there is thoracic, then lumbar, then sacral. But where plexus are formed? Plexus are formed in cervical, lumbar, and sacral regions of the anterior rami that unite to form large masses of nerves or plexus where nerve fibers are regrouped and rearranged before proceeding to supply skin, bones, muscles, and joints of a particular area. They have specific nerve supply from more than one spinal nerve. So there are five large plexus as follows, like cervical plexus. एक न्यूरॉन सर्वाइकल से निकला और फर्दर बहुत सारे मल्टीपल न्यूरॉन्स में उसकी ब्रांचेस डिवाइड हो गई. दैट इज नोन एज योर सर्वाइकल प्लेक्सिस. द नेक्स्ट इज योर brachial plexus. What you mean by brachial plexus? Brachial plexus, you can see, I am showing you, this is your brachial plexus. This is the largest plexus in your spinal nerve. You can see it is coming from cervical and thoracic region also. There are multiple branches of brachial plexus that are originating from your spinal nerves. Next is lumbar plexus. Next, sacral plexus, coccygeal plexus. So these are different plexus originating from the spinal nerves. So now we are going to discuss one by one these plexus. What you mean by cervical plexus? You can see cervical plexus is associated only with five regions of cervical portion, that is C1, C2, C3, C4, and C5. So cervical plexus are formed by anterior rami of the first four cervical nerves. These plexus lies opposite to first, second, third, and fourth cervical vertebrae on each side of neck under the protection of the sternocleidomastoid mastoid muscle. These are important muscle present in your neck and trunk region. The phrenic nerve arise from the cervical plexus and supply motor fibers to the diaphragm. The branches of cervical plexus also run parallel to two cranial nerves, that is accessory and hypoglossal. Now I am going to discuss the structure of cervical plexus. You can see this is single neuron, but after this single neuron, these are divided into multiple branches. That is known as superior root of ansa cervicalis. This is transverse cervical nerve. This is, you can see the cursor, inferior root of ansa cervicalis. And on the other side, the branches that is coming from C2. This is C2 branch, that is lesser occipital nerve. This is great auricular nerve. This is your phrenic nerve. This is very important, your phrenic nerve, because phrenic nerve are the nerves which are supplied to your diaphragm. You know what is diaphragm? Diaphragm is the part where your lungs and your heart is supported to each other, and below this your liver is present. When your intercostal muscles become contract, the supply that is coming with the help of phrenic nerve. The next is your brachial plexus. So brachial plexus is the anterior rami of the lower four cervical nerves, and it is a large part of the first thoracic nerve from the brachial plexus. This brachial plexus is situated in the neck and shoulder, above and behind the subclavian vessels and in the axilla. Five large nerves and a number of smaller ones emerge from this plexus. So I am going to discuss the different types of brachial plexus. The first is axillary nerve, that is originating from C5 and C6. Next is radial nerve. See, brachial plexus means the nerves that is going your hands. ये वो न्यूरॉन्स हैं जो आपके स्पाइनल कॉर्ड से निकल रही हैं और आपके हाथों के अंदर उन न्यूरॉन्स की सप्लाई है. Second is your radial nerve. Radial nerve is originating from C5, C6, C7, C8 and T1. Next is your musculocutaneous nerve. What is musculocutaneous nerve? That is supplying to your muscle and cutaneous skin part, originating from C5, C6 and C7. Next is your median nerve. Median nerve is also originating from C5, C6, C7, C8 and thoracic 1. Next is ulnar nerve. Ulnar nerve is originating and supplying to C7, C8 and thoracic. The next is medial cutaneous nerve that is originating and coming from spinal C8, cervical 8 and thoracic 1. So this is the organization of these cutaneous nerve, where you can see the anterior view and you can see the posterior view. In anterior view, you can see in upper portion there is supraclavicular nerve C3, C4. Then posterior to this supraclavicular, कंधों के रीजन को हम क्लेविकुलर रीजन बोलते हैं. Then there is axillary or circumflex nerve C5, C6. Then this red area is your radial nerve. See, these all are coming from this central spinal cord and they enter into this portion. This is anterior and this is posterior. Anterior means I am showing my hand like this and posterior means like this. So on left side you are seeing the anterior and there is posterior. This is musculocutaneous nerve C5, C6. This is your radial nerve C7, 8 and median nerve C6, 7 and 8. In supraclavicular nerve C3 and C4, in posterior view you can see the axillary nerve C5 and C6 and the radial nerve. You can see this is the whole red region. You are seeing whole red. This is your radial nerve C5, C6. But in hand, especially in case of fingers, the radial nerves are C7 and C8. Next is lumbar plexus. Lumbar plexus, that the lumbar plexus is found by the anterior rami of the first three and part of the fourth lumbar nerves. Lumbar plexus is situated in front of the transverse processes of the lumbar vertebrae. The main branches and their nerve roots are, nerve roots means जहाँ से वो nerves निकल रही हैं, जहाँ से वो nerves originate हो रही हैं. Suppose this is your cell body and this is your axon. It means this is root. Root means जहाँ से बहुत सारे neurons निकल रहे हैं. Collection of cell body, and that collection of cell body is called ganglia. Ganglia means the group of cell body outside the brain. In lumbar plexus, you can see this is iliohypogastric nerve, as the name is showing that this is coming, that is going to your gastric region. Next is ilioinguinal nerve, that is your L1, that is originating from L1 to your inguinal part, lower abdomen part. Next is genitofemoral. What do you mean by genitofemoral? As the name is showing that the nerve is coming from L1 and L2 and going to your sex organs like genital organs and femoral. The next is lateral cutaneous nerve of thigh. The nerve that is going into the thigh is L2 and L3. Femoral nerve. They are coming into femoral cavity, the femoral region, femoral bone region. They are originating from L2, L3, and L4. The next is obturator nerve. Obturator means they are coming from L2, L3, and L4. And next is lumbosacral trunk. Lumbosacral trunk is your L4, L5. So here you can see the different lumbar plexus. Lumbar plexus, here you can see there is a complete vertebrae which is organized from, which is start from thoracic 12. Then there is lumbar 1, lumbar 2, 3, 4, and 5, and S1. It means in lumbar plexus only these spinal cord regions are involved. And here you can see the iliohypogastric nerve, ilioinguinal nerve. See, that's why we called it plexus, because one nerve is divided into branches or network of neurons. The next is genitofemoral nerve. These are lateral cutaneous nerve that is going into thigh. Now this is obturator that is also enter into your hip region. Next is lumbosacral trunk, femoral nerve. You can see the yellow color nerve. Inguinal ligament. These are inguinal ligament that attach with your hip bone. So this is your subcostal nerve that is also originating from this T12. The iliohypogastric nerve, you can see that is genitofemoral, ilioinguinal nerve, lateral cutaneous nerve of thigh, and femoral nerve. So these are different type of nerves associated and making the lumbar plexus. This is the another example of the nerves that is present in your leg region. You can see the femoral nerve. You can see this is your femoral nerve that is present in the femoral part of your lower limb. This is your lateral cutaneous nerve of thigh, the nerve that is present in your thigh region. The next is obturator nerve. Obturator nerve, we know the nerve that is coming down to your leg region, from coming from hip region also. This is your saphenous nerve. Saphenous nerve, this is the largest and the thickest nerve that is present in your leg. Due to damage of this leg, the patient is unable to move forward. The common peroneal nerve that is just present at the end of the lower limbs. This is superficial peroneal nerve, also present at the lower limb, lower side. This is the deep peroneal nerve, and this is sural nerve. So these are the different type of nerves present in the lower limbs, or you can say the leg region. This was anterior view and this is posterior view. Next and most important is the sacral plexus. The sacral plexus is formed by the anterior rami of the lumbosacral trunk and the first, second, and third sacral nerves. These three parts of this plexus are making the sacral plexus. The lumbosacral trunk is formed by the fifth and part of the fourth lumbar nerves. It lies in the posterior wall of the pelvic cavity. The sacral plexus divided into a number of branches that supplying the muscles and skin of the pelvic organs. So these are the different type of these nerves of sacral and coccygeal plexus. I am going to discuss these nerves one by one. You can see they are originating from the lumbar region L4, L5. Only two lumbar regions are making the lumbosacral plexus, and after that there are S1, S2, S3, S4, S5, and one coccygeal nerve is there. It means this is your sacral plexus, this is your coccygeal plexus. Sacral plexus is made up by L4, L5, S1, S2, S3, S4, and coccygeal plexus is S4, S5, and coccygeal. We know coccygeal are fused bone, so that region is considered as a one particular bone. So at site where these nerves are going are superior gluteal nerve, the inferior gluteal nerve, the common peroneal nerve. This is your tibial nerve that is going and supplying to your tibia side, and this is also divided into two types, like one is sciatic nerve, the next is posterior femoral cutaneous nerve, pudendal nerve, and this is very important, the branches that you are seeing, if you are seeing my cursor, the nerve to levator, anacoccygeus, and external anal sphincter. So these are very important nerves controlling these body parts. Next is the distribution and origin of cutaneous nerves of the leg. Cutaneous nerve. So I am discussing one by one. You can understand in anterior portion or posterior view. So I am taking example of anterior side. So it will be easy for you that the leg is like this, and you are showing, and I am showing you the organization and the supplying of these nerves to particular site. So in this distribution and origin of cutaneous nerve to the leg, you can see there is ilioinguinal nerve L1. This is the entry point. Subcostal nerve that is supplying to this region T12. Genitofemoral nerve L1, L2. Lateral cutaneous nerve of thigh. This red area is L2, L3. It means स्पाइनल कोड से वो नर्व निकल के आपकी बॉडी में जो लेग्स है वहां के उस रीजन के पूरे को सप्लाई उस प्लेक्सिस की वजह से आ रही है. दिस इज योर abruterer L2, L3, L4. Next is your medial and intermediate cutaneous nerves L2, L3. The lateral cutaneous nerve of calf of leg, this is known as calf of leg, that is L5, S1, S2. Next is the superficial peroneal nerve, that is your musculocutaneous nerve L4, L5, S1. Next is your sural nerve, that is S1, S2, and the deep peroneal nerve L4 and L5. So this was the anterior view. Now I am discussing the posterior view. You can see the subcostal nerve T12. This is the posterior side. Ilio hypogastric nerve L1. Posterior rami L1, L2, L3. The lateral cutaneous nerve of thigh L2 and L3. The posterior cutaneous nerve S1, S2, S3. The arbitrator nerve L2, L3, L4. The medial cutaneous, you can see it is in yellow color at the posterior view, like other colors also. The lateral cutaneous nerve of calf L4, L5, S1 of leg. The sural nerve L5, S1, S2. And the last is your tibial nerve S1 and S2. So these are the different type of cutaneous nerve of the leg. Now I am going to discuss the thoracic nerves. Though thoracic nerve do not intermingle to form plexus. सिर्फ thoracic nerves ही आपकी ऐसी nerves है जो कोई network of neurons नहीं बनाती. There are 12 pairs and the first 11 are intercostal nerve. It means thoracic nerves are the nerves which supplies to your ribs region, this region. रिब्स जहां पर आपकी इंटरकोस्टल मसल्स है, जिसके पीछे आपका लंग्स है, डायफ्राम है, जहां पर ये बार बार कॉन्ट्रैक्ट रिलैक्स करते हैं. दे पास बिटवीन द रिब्स सप्लाइंग देम द इंटरकोस्टल मसल एंड ओवरलाइंग द स्किन. The 12th pair are the subcostal nerves, the 7th to the 12th thoracic nerve, which also supply the muscles and the skin of posterior and anterior abdominal wall. So these were the spinal nerves. Now I am going to brief the lecture of my whole peripheral nervous system in short overview. So we discuss about the sympathetic outflow. This is the sympathetic outflow. Most of the questions that came from the sympathetic outflow, you can see there is a spinal cord. Spinal cord is working as a preganglia. Then these are the celiac ganglia, or you can say the origin of the postganglia. These are the postganglionic fibers, the red dotted lines, and these lines are postganglionic fibers and supplying to different part of your body and performing some individual actions. So one by one, we will discuss the structures and the effect of sympathetic nervous system on body organs or tissues. So the first is iris muscle. When sympathetic system is stimulated, the pupil become dilated and slightly relaxed. The blood vessel in head, they become constricted. Salivary gland, the secretion is inhibited. Oral and nasal mucosa, the mucus secretion is inhibited. Skeletal blood vessels, they become dilated. Heart, the rate and force of contraction is increased due to sympathetic stimulation. Coronary arteries, especially in case of coronary arteries, the blood vessel become dilated. Trachea and bronchi, they become dilated. In stomach, the peristalsis movements are reduced. Sphincters are closed. In intestine, peristalsis and the tone of peristalsis movement is decreased and causing vasoconstriction. In liver, due to glycogen, the glucose conversion is increased. It means in liver, what happened? Glycogenolysis. The glycogen is breakdown and converting into glucose. Next is your spleen that is contracted. In adrenal medulla, adrenaline and noradrenaline secreted into blood. In large and small intestine, the peristalsis is reduced and sphincter is closed. In kidney, urine secretion is decreased. In bladder, smooth muscle wall is relaxed and sphincter is closed. Especially related to genital organs and sex organs, they generally vasoconstrict. So these are the basic overview of the sympathetic outflow. In exam point of view, you can also write in exam if there is a question about the sympathetic nervous system. Now we are going to discuss the brief overview of parasympathetic nervous system. So in parasympathetic nervous system, you can see in spinal cord where it is working as a preganglia. These are postganglia and these are postganglionic fiber. Preganglia, this is preganglionic fiber. This is preganglionic fiber junction. This is postganglia. This is postganglionic fiber and this is postganglionic fiber junction. So these are the different nerve fibers which are supplying to different body parts. Parasympathetic functions are totally opposite to sympathetic nervous system functions. So, what are those functions? One by one, we will discuss so that this chapter we can conclude in a very good manner. Iris muscle, the pupils are constricted and contracted. After this, we will discuss the difference between sympathetic and parasympathetic system. Lacrimal gland, tear secretion is increased. Salivary glands, there are two types of salivary glands like submandibular, sublingual. Their secretion is increased, saliva secretion is increased, and in parotid gland there is also increased in saliva. In heart, the rate and force of contraction is decreased. In coronary arteries, there is a vasoconstriction, but in case of sympathetic nervous system, in coronary arteries there is vasodilation. In trachea and bronchi, there is bronchoconstriction. In stomach, secretion of gastric juice and peristalsis increased. In small intestine, digestion and absorption increased. In liver and gallbladder, blood vessel dilated, secretion of bile is increased. In pancreas, secretion of pancreatic juice is increased. In kidney, urine secretion is increased. In small intestine, secretion of intestinal juice and peristalsis is increased. In large intestine, secretions and peristalsis is increased, sphincter is relaxed. But in bladder, muscle of wall contracted and sphincter is relaxed. In case of sex organs and genitalia, in male there is a erection. In female, it can be varied depending upon the stage and cycle. So these are the collectively functions of sympathetic and parasympathetic nervous system, where we can also differentiate these nervous system on the basis of neuronal organization and on the basis of functions. In parasympathetic, the pupils are constricted, but in sympathetic, the pupils are dilated. Increase saliva production. In sympathetic, inhibit saliva production. In parasympathetic, there is reduction in heart rate and bronchia is constricted. But in sympathetic, bronchia is dilated and increase in heart rate. In case of parasympathetic, there is a stimulation of the activity of digestive organs, which stimulate the activity of pancreas and stimulate the gallbladder. But in sympathetic, it inhibits the activity of the digestive organs and inhibit the activity of pancreas as well as gallbladder. In sympathetic, it stimulates the adrenal medulla to release adrenaline and noradrenaline, and it relaxes urinary bladder in sympathetic. In parasympathetic, the urinary bladder is constricted. In parasympathetic, it stimulates erection of genitals of man and woman, but in sympathetic, it stimulates orgasm in genitals of man and woman. So these are the basic structural organizations and the functional differences between parasympathetic and sympathetic nervous system. Now I am going to brief about classification of these organization of peripheral nervous system so that it will be in your mind to easily understand the whole mechanism. So we already studied and discussed that the central nervous system is taking supply from peripheral nervous system, and peripheral nervous system is can be divided into different divisions like sensory and motor. In sensory, it is collecting the information in the form of somatic sensory and visceral sensory. What are somatic sensory informations? In general, they are touch, pain, pressure, vibration, temperature, and proprioception in skin, body wall, and limbs, and especially the hearing, equilibrium, and vision. In visceral sensory like stretch, pain, temperature, chemical changes, and irritation in viscera, nausea, hunger. Especially the two senses that are also responsible like taste and smell. These information are coming to spinal cord with the help of afferent neuron, and spinal cord then again send this information to the central nervous system for further processing. So the senses are coming to spinal cord, from spinal cord to brain. This is your blue signal in this diagram. When your brain is processed that information, then it send back that message to your body parts, which is showing in red lines. So they are motor divisions or efferent divisions. In this, you can see the somatic nervous system and autonomic nervous system. The somatic nervous system, where motor innervations of all skeletal muscles are involved. In autonomic nervous system, the motor innervations of smooth muscle, cardiac muscle, and glands. These two nervous system is further divided into sympathetic and parasympathetic nervous system. So this was the brief overview of the peripheral nervous system. Now I am going to discuss the brief overview of eye and ear so that it will be easy for all of you to easily understand the basic behind the eye and ear. So in eye and ear, we discuss about the anatomy and disorder of ear. Here you can see the finest structure of eye. I am just go through the eye so that our will be whole topic will be revised and you will be understand in a good manner. We revised an overview of the peripheral nervous system where we discuss about the sympathetic nervous system and parasympathetic nervous system. Both nervous systems are working oppositely to each other. Then we discuss the spinal nerves and cranial nerves. In spinal nerves, we discuss different type of spinal nerves like lumbar plexus, choroid plexus, brachial plexus, cervical plexus, sacral plexus, thoracic plexus. These different types of plexus we discuss there. In cranial nerves, we discuss different type of cranial nerves that are divided into 12 cranial nerves. Like I'm giving some examples like ophthalmic, glossopharyngeal, hypoglossal, abductory, intermediate, vestibulocochlear. There are different type of cochlear cranial nerves. What is the speciality of cranial nerves? Cranial nerves are the nerves which supply the neurons to your head, neck, and some trunk part. Okay, so now I am going to just giving a revision of eye, giving brief overview so that your topic will be revised and you can understand. In eye, we discuss about the pupil, that is the innermost portion, and the portion that is surrounding to pupil is your iris, and surround the iris there is a layer that is called sclera, that is the outermost layer outermost layer of your eye. Below this sclera, if we discuss about the layer of eye, there is choroid, retina, and there is a some you can say the structure that is overgrow, that is feva. There is a passage for optic nerve and cranial and central and retinal artery and vein. There are two type of liquid present in the eye which maintain the structural integrity as well as provide the protection to the eye. One is aqueous humor that is present anteriorly to the pupil, and the second one is vitreous humor. This is thick fluid that is maintaining the structure and the roundness of your eye. In this, we also studied about the accessory structures like eyebrow, eyelid, eyelashes, conjunctiva, lacrimal apparatus, and muscle of the eye. These are the accessory structures we already studied. So you can see here, this is your eyebrow, eyelid, eyelashes, sides where conjunctiva merge with cornea, that is your, this is palpebral fissure. Palpebral fissure. This is your lateral commissure. This is your iris. This is your eyelid. This is the central middle portion. Dark is your pupil. This is your sclera and the lacrimal, caruncle, and medial commissure. So these are different type of these, you can say, the accessory structures associated with the eye. These are the functions, different functions of these accessory structures. Now we already discussed about, this is the overview of the lacrimal apparatus, that is very important. In lacrimal apparatus, that include one lacrimal gland and its ducts, two lacrimal canaliculi, one lacrimal sac, and one nasolacrimal duct. So here you can see the lacrimal sac, caruncle, the inferior canaliculus, the superior canaliculus. These are the chambers from where the lacrimal fluid is coming. The upper side of this eyeball, there are lacrimal duct and the glands which are secreting a specific fluid into your eye and making it moisture. Then we also discuss about the muscles of the eye responsible for the movement of the eyeball from side to side or rolling. There are different type of muscles like rectus muscle. Please remember this word, rectus muscle. Do not confuse with other term. There are four type of rectus muscle on the basis of their location. One is superior. Here you can see the superior rectus, inferior rectus, lateral rectus, and medial rectus. Beside these, there are some obliques like superior oblique, inferior oblique. So I'm just giving the overview of this eyeball also, because eyeball is nothing but a layer, a different part, a different layers where outer layer, middle layer, and inner layers are present. In outer layer there is sclera and cornea. In middle layer there is choroid, ciliary body, and iris, and in inner layer there is retina. Beside these, there are two cavities where liquid is present. One is aqueous humor and another is vitreous humor, which is responsible to providing the protection to become to eye become wet and maintain the morphology and the structural integrity of eyeball. So in outer layer, iris, pupil, sclera, and cornea is there. We already discussed. This is the overview of middle layer containing choroid, ciliary body, and iris. In inner layer, you can see the inner layer is the innermost layer of your eye, that is your retina. It is very important. I already give you example related to rod and cones, which are known as photoreceptor. मैंने अपने लास्ट लेक्चर में भी आप सभी से डिस्कस किया था कि जो कोन्स और रोड्स हैं, ये दो फोटो रिसेप्टर्स हैं आपके इनर आई के अंदर. व्हेन लाइट इज स्ट्राइकिंग ऑन दीज सेल्स, then they send this information to your brain to analyze the color and differentiate the structural object. If cones are damaged, remember, if cones are damaged, then a person is caused the light blindness, or you can say the color blindness. The person is not able to identify the color and his or her life is black and white. So retina is very important. So there are refractive media related to aqueous humor or vitreous humor. Aqueous humor, we discussed that it is watery fluid that provide nutrition and maintain the shape of cornea. Remember, shape of cornea, not the shape of eye. Then there is a thick viscous fluid that filled with some specific components that maintain the spherical shape of our eye. So these are different type of blood supply. The supplies, the these blood vessels are known as the posterior ciliary arteries, the interior carotid artery. These are branches, ophthalmic artery, central retinal artery, and central retinal vein. Lenses. So lenses are responsible for different lenses are responsible for to adjust the object and to recognize the structure, size, and shape. There आई ऑल्सो गिव यू एग्जाम्पल दैट अगर आप किसी दूर के ऑब्जेक्ट पे फोकस कर रहे हैं देन योर लेंस बिकम फ्लैटेंड why your lens become flattened because your ciliary muscle become relaxed and suspensory ligament become contract. But when you are focusing on near object, किसी पास की चीज को आप देख रहे हैं, then your lens become rounded, it become dilated due to ciliary muscle contracted and suspensory muscle become relaxed. So these are the examples of disorder of eye, that is blepharitis. You can see the real structure image. The next is hordeolum stye, where there is a edema of the eyelid. Ectropion, there is a distal, you can see the eyelid margin is disturbed. Then is trichiasis, conjunctivitis, redness of eye, cataract, and glaucoma. In ear, we already discussed about the different parts of the ear. You can see I am just briefing so that our next uh, uh, lecture that will be given by the professor Dr. Sant Verma. So I am not taking much time. Within 5 minutes, I am concluding and briefing this chapter. So in ear, you can see there is a pinna and there is a passage for to middle ear. This is eustachian tube. There are three bones are there. One is maxilla, then is ancus and stapes. They strike on the inner ear. There is endolymph. So this is the ear. Thank you so much for listening. So in anatomy and physiology, myself Siddharth Mehan, I covered specially topic on unit 4 related to peripheral nervous system and its spinal nerve, cranial nerve, spatial senses. I am very thankful to management of ISF College of Pharmacy for giving this opportunity to me for this wonderful ISF Teaching Marathon 2021. And I also heartiest thanks to our director, Dr. GD Gupta sir, our vice principal, Dr. RK Narang sir, for constant support and their motivation. So now, without taking much time, I request to my colleague, a renowned scientist in pharmaceutical field, Dr. Sant Kumar Verma, to start his next lecture in pharmaceutical chemistry. Welcome, Dr. Sant sir.
Thank you, sir.